It's a Monday, first edition in the week of PM Express, and we are focusing on something that affects every single person in this country. One of the most dreaded things any Ghanaian can ever imagine. This word here, Dumsor, is looming. Well, last week there was a hint about a financial crisis at GRIDCO. The workers are threatening a lot. We're going to look into the veracity of those claims and how bad it is tonight. What do we know so far? We know that the GRIDCO workers have in the last few days threatened a strike over ECG, NETCO and VACO debts that they say is crippling the ability to do business and the ability to maintain the lines to get you electricity in your homes and your offices and your industries as well. Now, according to the workers, and this is the breakdown, and this is important, the ECG owes it some 600 million Ghana cedis, NETCO owes it 177 million, VACO owes it $32 million. Now, the PDS owes it some $94 million as well. And they also talk about the fact that since the 2018 tariff reductions, they've lost in excess of 200 million cedis. So, put it all together, this is almost $1 billion cedis we are talking about here that GRIDCO is owed. The impact on this is obvious, according to the workers. We know that this is happening within the context where PDS itself is gone and has gone back to ECG. We know that for certain now, forcing ECG to assume full control of the power distribution assets of this particular country. Now, ECG is said to be owing the IPPs, independent power producers. We've had this complaint before, and it appears really, if you look at the top of the chain, when it comes to the organization owing the most, ECG is most at fault. We also know the IPPs have, they supply power almost 1,500 megawatts to us. If they take this away, there's going to be a disaster. They themselves have threatened in the past to cut power to us because they are owed. GRIDCO can't complain that it's unable to, expand its transmission. Most importantly, even maintain what they have. Workers say they can't travel because they are not being paid. They are unable to maintain the equipment that brings you power to your home, and so it's at the risk of, simply falling apart. Their equipment is dilapidated. Government needs to replace it, but they don't have any money to inject into the sector to make sure that you get the reliable power supply that you deserve. And remember that GRIDCO deals with NETCO and ECG. NETCO and ECG then brings the power to your home, and it just seems to be in the middle there. If you break that middle chain, the entire power infrastructure is in jeopardy. Now, the workers, their demands are simple. They're demanding pay back the monies you owe or sit down strike if their concerns aren't heard by December 4th. December 4th is just around the corner, by the way. This is just Monday, and so we need to look at what is the latest on this since the strike was called last week. They also withdraw all emergency services, and this is where the scary part is. All emergency services will treat them within the normal working hours, the workers had said when they did that press conference last week. It warns that the entire country could be without power. This, what you see here, could be reality, the workers tell us, if indeed their demands aren't met. So is it that Dumsor is looming on the back of the concerns that the workers have told us? How bad really is it? Our information from the Energy Ministry is that this will be resolved because the senior minister has personally intervened. The question is, how soon will the monies be released to them after they have met the president and put the complaints directly before him? If the president had gotten involved, it tells you this is serious. We're going to look at it tonight. Stay with us. You're live on PM Express tonight. My guest in the studio is Kojo Poku. He's an energy analyst. Also with me is Ben Boache. He is executive director with the Africa Center for Energy Policy. Joining me via Skype right now is Raphael Connor. He's a national chairman of GRIDCO Senior Staff Association, and they disclosed a lot of the things that we are beginning to learn about GRIDCO at the press conference that they held last week. And you see him on Skype. I want to start with him because they had given an ultimatum, a December 4 ultimatum for government to address their concerns, as in pay up what they owe GRIDCO. Other than that, the series of actions, which have already begun, by the way, including the withdrawal of emergency services to fix, the equipment if it breaks down and there's a need for an emergency intervention. That wouldn't happen because they claim that they can't do that anymore under the current circumstances. Let me bring him in now. Raphael, thank you for your time here on PM Express.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that you could join us. I just want to find out, has anything changed since your press conference last week? Okay, we'll try and fix the sound problem with him and get the very latest on this particular matter, and then we'll come into the studio. Mr. Poku, let me start with you on this then. I mean, I had a press conference last week, pretty alarming. Close to 1 billion cedis is claimed they're owed, but most importantly, they cannot carry out very essential maintenance works. They're unable to travel because they simply don't have the money. It's very dire from what they tell us. Knowing how important GRIDCO is this an exaggeration to say that this is a crisis?
Yes, it is. You see, let's correct something. Okay. When GRIDCO say that all those government agencies owe them, or those government companies owe them, then they are not abreast with the happenings of this year. Mm. Post, or let's say pre-1st March, before ECG was transferred to PDS, all indebtedness of ECG was ring-fenced by government. So every PDS took over a clean slate. So ECG debt to everybody, government took it over. So from 1st March going forward, ECG that went to PDS, they don't owe anybody. Mm. So the debt that GRIDCO had is no longer with ECG. It's with government, Ministry of Finance, you and I. Mm. Then we now go into the other companies that they are saying they owe them. VRA, GRIDCO, what's that other one? Netco. And Valco. All those are government institutions. So bottom line, it is the father of the same daughters and sons. Mm-hmm. Government is a majority shareholder of all these companies. So if you are saying that if government does not pay you, you're going to lay down your tools, the first question I want to ask them is that you are not being starved of revenue, because I have it on good authority that you've been given money from time to time. Yes, in the last 6 weeks, the only time they've not gotten any money is between 1 to 2 weeks since ECG.
Money for what?
Their money that is due to them from the electricity generation that we pay. In the build-up of what you and I pay, there's amount of money in there the PLC put up that goes to GRIDCO, that goes to the distribution service charge, that goes to the distributor, money that goes to the IPPs. Then when the IPP's money is taken, then they take out the GRIDCO money, and the distributor also takes his money. So basically, I have it on good authority that since ECG took over from PDS, every week they have transferred money to GRIDCO.
But the workers categorically deny that.
That's not true. The only time in the last, see, when they did a press conference, from what I heard, they did not say that they've not been receiving money. They said that the money owed to them, which the legacy debts, which they talked about, is what they want. But for me, that's ill-informed, because that money does no longer sit with ECG. It sits with Ministry of Finance. So Ministry of Finance is the one that you should go to pay your money.
Yeah, but they were addressing this press conference to all the agencies that owed. In fact, they claim that they met the president himself.
Right.
And the directive was given to the finance minister to release a certain amount of money to them. They claim that it's been 6 months, and that particular directive hasn't been executed.
But do you know what the Ministry of Finance also says? The Ministry of Finance also goes to say that if they are to sit down with GRIDCO and do a reconciliation, GRIDCO might end up owing them.
In fact, they mentioned that.
Yes, because what happens is that anytime they have to go and do a project, government is 100% owner of GRIDCO. So they did the guarantee, and all the loans that they've taken to do their project is government that takes that loan for them. So this thing is, for me, I don't see why it is the workers that's doing a demonstration. They have management. Why can't the management have a conversation with the workers, explain to them government directions, then allowing the workers to call ultimatum on government, who's your employer?
Yeah, but I think it's obvious why management wouldn't do this, because management, as we always know, even if they are feeling the pinch, rarely will they do this, because with the politically charged environment such as we have, it's expected that the workers will do it. And these are senior staff, by the way. Isn't it expected that management will not be as vociferous as the workers have been?
No, I think workers can only be vociferous when it is government involved. I'm not sure Evans will wake up one day and go to the debtors of multimedia to pay multimedia because you're not being paid. It's not done, really. It's because government owns it and we are all citizens, and therefore if you're employed, you can just wake up and demand some of those payments be made. But of course, if we had a strong leadership and that can put the cards on the table for government, it wouldn't be for workers to now be threatening everybody, including you and I, who have already paid what is due GRIDCO. Because when we pay our bills, we don't withhold what belongs to GRIDCO and pay ECG, or withhold what belongs to VRA. We have fulfilled our part of the bargain. PRC approves a tariff with all those segments categorized. So if I pay a unit of electricity, it is assumed that each component is paid to whoever is due. But again, it comes back to the point Kojo was making. It's because it's government and the accounts are virtually now consolidated, and Ministry of Finance decide who requires payments, and therefore if there is urgent need to pay IPPs who are private, they tend to favor that settlement before they look at the government entity. But I think the bigger conversation really is to see how into the future we can avoid this kind of conversation and allow these institutions to run as businesses. If government decides to set up a business like we have in GRIDCO, then you must be prepared to apply the rules and ethics that goes with doing business, right? You set up a company to take up the transmission end of the value chain. You need to have the vehicle run like any corporate entity will run, so that you have appointed authorities who can act independently and engage on equal terms and measure with stakeholders in the value chain. So what this clearly shows is that leadership has failed to engage ECG and get their money, and therefore they are calling on a third party, the shareholder, to come and pay. It's also because the shareholder sometimes becomes a player, and taking the decisions that ordinarily should be taken by the players within the industry. And I think that is what we need to fix, into the long term. Else, workers' agitation will not stop, because they are citizens and they are workers. They may not have the right within thinking of corporate governance to be the ones shouting. But if the bosses cannot shout, and their jobs are threatened, and they are citizens and they vote, then they can call on, the shareholder who ultimately requires them to vote for, to now step in. So these are the challenges we do have. But the debt situation is interesting, how now they are recalling, we've moved on. The power sector has moved on from some of those numbers, and they should know where to go for the money. If you go to ECG and say...
So you say this is legacy debt?
Legacy debt.
You agree with Kojo that this is not new accumulated debt?
No.
No, but the workers categorically say this is new accumulated debt.
No, there's a new one.
Obviously, there will be debt.
In fact,
power is generated.
There's something I'll interrogate a bit more
before revenue is collected. So in that sector, there is no way you will not owe somebody. So,
but the explanation is that it's since ECG took back control.
In the last
I think it was only in respect.
It's
only in respect of the fact that the payments are not as smooth as it was prior to the exit of PDS. But that is not to say that they owe that much between this short period of time. They've added all the legacy debt, from VACO, from Netco, and all of that to arrive at that value. But again, how do we resolve these challenges into the future? And I think we need to step back and say that if you have such a power sector to clean up, set up the transparent vehicle, allow the sector to run itself and be as efficient as it can be, so that the sector can pay for itself.
Kojo, is it your position that the workers really don't have a case?
No, they don't. For me, look, if they understand, my point is this. They are making the point that they don't have money to do the basic things that they are being employed to do, which is not true.
Really?
Yes, it's not. Because
you know this how?
Let me tell you, let me give you the position. When PDS took over, from 1st March, there was a hold in the month of March because of the CP4 letter. Okay, because what happened was that there wasn't the tariff methodology put in place before the transfer to PDS. Ministry of Finance told them to hold on to all revenue generated in the month of March. That hold was lifted in April. So from April onwards, in the time when PDS was running, GRIDCO was always paid first before even the IPPs were paid. So GRIDCO were receiving timely transfers from PDS to GRIDCO, and they can't come and deny that. Okay, that's a fact.
No, they admit that GRIDCO was doing timely payments.
Well, no, PDS was
PDS,
doing,
sorry,
PDS were doing timely payments to them. Okay, so now that payment was happening. Then the 1st August till middle October, that revenue is on hold.
Why?
Because during the suspension period, the monies were coming into PDS, but it was only being spent at the direction of both ECG and the Ministry of Finance, because that's when government suspended the PDS transaction. So from 1st August to middle of October, when the contract was terminated, the monies were still going into PDS account, but it was being spent under the direction of ECG and the Ministry of Finance. The account was changed back to ECG after the termination. The money sitting in PDS account from first or from the beginning till the time when it was terminated has not been transferred to ECG because there's a need to do a reconciliation. So the period of reconciliation is now making the money that sits in the suspension period from the 1st of August to the middle of October. That money is sitting there. So I can agree with GRIDCO, within that period, they were not getting any money.
Which is how many? Which is time lapse?
We are talking about August, September, October. So you are talking about maybe six to 8 weeks.
Okay.
So we're not nobody got paid. The IPPs never got paid. Nobody got paid, and that money, as I speak to you now, is sitting in an account waiting for the reconciliation, and then after the reconciliation, it will be paid. But just when the account were converted to ECG and ECG started receiving money, they've been doing weekly payments to GRIDCO.
Weekly payment?
Weekly payments.
Okay.
And the only time that weekly payment
they're paying what they owe on a weekly basis?
No, what is being due, not what they... Nobody is talking about what is owed. What is due. So this week, what is collected, what is due to GRIDCO, they pay them.
Okay.
Okay, so since they took over recently, they've been sending GRIDCO what is due to GRIDCO. Obviously, like I said, the legacy debt is with Ministry of Finance. There is this amount which is being contested, which is the amount which they said under PDS. But like I said, there is money sitting in an account which nobody can touch. There are a lot of contractors for ECG that are going through hell because GRA is going around shutting their offices because they've not been paid, and all because ECG doesn't have access to the money that is sitting there from the PDS because of reconciliation.
I want to bring in Raphael. He's a national chairman of the GRIDCO Senior Staff Association. We had a challenge with his line earlier. Let's see if we can hear me now. Raphael, can you hear me, sir? Hello, Raphael. Raphael, can you hear me, sir?
I can hear you now.
Great, thank you very much for joining us. So again, I was asking at the beginning, has there been any change since you last held that press conference last week?
No, Ivan, nothing has changed.
We can fix that line. You said nothing has changed?
Exactly so, nothing has changed.
Okay, and so, but you wrote to the government, they haven't even called you for a meeting?
No.
Okay, and tell me something. I've just been listening to my guests in the studio say to me that it isn't true that you're not receiving payments. In fact, they say that you've been getting what you do from ECG. Is that the case?
Evans, I think that my good friend in the studio should be candid enough to say the truth. We are contesting the outstanding bill prior to the exit of PDS, which is 94 million. And we did state in our press conference that last week or so, 2 weeks, a check was issued and it has bounced. But he's not denying that fact as well. For us, we think that what we issued out is the truth and nothing but the truth.
So ECG issues you a check, which has since bounced.
Yes.
Okay, and this obviously brought this to the attention of ECG.
Well, I think the appropriate authorities have brought their attention to it.
And has it been rectified?
Well, we are here to clarify from our finance people and see whether that check has been rewritten and maybe whether it has been cleared.
Give me a proper sense of this particular challenge you talk of with the financial crisis, because
Hello.
All you are referring to is a legacy debt, correct?
Hello.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
No, I can't hear you.
Okay, we'll try and fix that. But you heard him there.
Yes.
That checks have been issued and checks bounced.
Yes, and even I was even surprised that in this day and age of technology, ECG is writing check to GRIDCO. I was surprised when I heard that. But
what do you expect?
I mean, wire transfer. I mean, come on, why is ECG signing a check to?
But I know why. Because if wire transfer is almost instant. If you sign a check, it takes time. Time
value of money.
Yeah, because you don't have the money. You sign a check. By the time the guy goes to clear, other 3 days have gone. Hoping that by the time.
So I'm aware that but the reason given to that was not lack of money. The reason being given to that is the internal problem within a bank, from what I was told. That's where, if you remember what I said earlier, is that since ECG took over, they've been receiving weekly payments, just that there was a week or two where the payment couldn't go through, and my brother on the Skype has confirmed that yes, the check bounced. And for me, what I've been told again is that that problem has been rectified, and just as the previous week, they've received the payment that's come through. Yes, if they mention about legacy or previous debt under under PDS, like I clearly said, that is money that is sitting there that nobody can touch.
But it's clear, isn't it, Ben, that this is more serious than maybe Kojo is painting it. Because the workers say they can't even travel, they don't even have funds to travel to the sites to maintain equipment. When they travel, the hoteliers they normally deal with will not work with them anymore because they've accumulated so much debt with their suppliers that hoteliers are even turning them away. These are very basic, but at least it shows you how bad the situation is, right? So if it's only about legacy debt, I mean, and which has been referenced in this government, why is it the day-to-day work of GRIDCO is suffering, if you want to believe what the workers are saying?
No, I think that would be exaggerating the situation.
But that's a workers' claim.
They should pick that up with management. If it's gotten to a stage where they cannot pay for accommodation.
Yeah. To maintain the equipment.
It's hard for me to believe because when you talk about the quantum
you doubt
of
the
money
workers
that is paid in this sector, I mean, hotels are at the fringes, really. So that is not to say that they don't have a point, as I maintain that there are genuine problems to ensure that the money due GRIDCO goes to them. Perhaps it doesn't lie in the mouth of the workers to do so. And that is where we need management, because the conflicts that we are trying to resolve here as to whether the check has been rectified or not, there are people in management who should know whether it's been rectified or not. If we were speaking to a management member of GRIDCO right now, you should be in a position to tell us whether it's been rectified or not. So I think we as a country need to fix this and ensure that the transmission company also gets the revenue due to it, so that we don't leave it into conversations that, you know, can be skewed from management perspective, and where management is not even confident to speak to the issues, then it becomes even more challenging. If we ask my brother right now, I mean, what is the management position on this conversation? He may not be able to articulate that, really. So it tells you that fundamentally the structures are wrong. We are not setting up the company to succeed when management cannot take the bold decisions that are required and also demand the cash flows that already has been paid. Because for a consumer, it is not your business to look at who is threatening you when you have actually paid what is actually due you. So those are the fundamental issues that we have to resolve. Another issue that I come up.
Can I chip in something really? From what Ben just said? You see, if you're talking about hotel bills, you know government is not the only customer of GRIDCO. You know GRIDCO has Newmont. All the other bulk customers who take power directly from the generator pays GRIDCO directly. So let's even assume Newmont. Are they saying that Newmont is not paying their bills? And the bills that Newmont is paying them cannot pay for hotel bills? Let's be realistic here. I mean, these are huge amount of money.
No, but for hotel bills, I mean...
so if you tell me that you
will Newmont pay GRIDCO directly?
Yes, they pay them directly.
They receive revenue.
They receive revenue. Newmont, GRIDCO has other alternative revenues from companies, from bulk customers who contract directly with GRIDCO, and GRIDCO charge a certain margin on the PPA. Sorry, on the power purchase agreement which they sign. There is a percentage, a margin on there for GRIDCO, and that goes directly to GRIDCO, doesn't go to government. So let's assume nobody else is paying. Isn't Newmont paying?
Ben, there's another thing that the workers revealed, which is the PDS ECG dichotomy. They say before PDS came to the scene, they had challenges getting the regular payments due them. PDS comes on the scene, and they confess the PDS was more regular with the payments that they were due, and that they've seen that since PDS contract was terminated, ECG took over. It sort of returned to that, you know, situation where monies are not coming as and when it should. I wonder if ECG could do it, and the workers were happy under ECG. I mean, GRIDCO workers were happy under PDS. Why is it that ECG seem to struggle to pay up?
I think again the time frame is too short for them to make that comparison. Really, I mean, you remember in this town we fought for PDS to start releasing money. They were not paying anybody.
They were not paying the IPPs.
They were not paying the IPPs. They were not paying GRIDCO. They were not paying
the ECG.
But that's not the testimony of the workers. They say they were happy with PDS.
So that's the point I was making. They started with a challenge, and then we stepped in. We advocated that they should fix the structure and allow everybody to be paid along the chain. And then they started doing it. Months after, we protested and argued with government and the value chain, and that was rectified. Somewhere along the line, the transaction had to be cancelled, and then we revert to ECG. There are complications around, you know, moving money from PDS when reconciliation hasn't been done. So those things are to be expected, you know, and we don't anticipate that will continue into the future, because we expect that same mechanism to exist, to be able to remit whatever is due to ECG, unless, you know, government again decide to intervene as they do all the time to regulate who gets what.
How long was PDS there? Was 6 months?
Of the March to July.
Yeah. But you say it's not enough time to judge, but isn't it really enough time?
No, I was making a point that when PDS took over, for more than 2 months, they were not paying. You understand? They were also holding on to the money. Why are they not complaining about that?
But whatever it was, the workers were happy with the PDS tenure.
But they were not happy with that part of the tenure.
Initial part of the tenure,
there were problems until we pushed for them to start paying. Okay, and they started paying, and there's a challenge. You know, they had to cancel the agreement. There's transfer. Some money are still sitting in PDS account as we speak, which they have not reconciled. Part of that money belongs to GRIDCO. You get a point. So all of that will have to be fixed, and the way to fix it is also ensure that we are taking quicker actions from government side and also from the side of ECG to ensure that we don't continue, because they have to transmit the power at a cost, and that cost has to be offset by, you know, what has been agreed in the tariff, for them. But we shouldn't exaggerate it.
You think it's exaggerated?
Absolutely. I mean, if you're adding hotel bills.
No, but they want to let you appreciate how bad the situation is.
They should talk to their management. How they cannot even get
I'm very certain
hotel
and we'll get him back.
paid.
We'll get him back on the phone line to clarify this. I'm very certain that they would have definitely spoken to.
No, you should be talking about, in this past industry, we don't talk coins here. We talk big money. So you should be talking about.
But if the coins is affecting
$20 million equipment, $10 million.
No, but you see, the point is that look, they are getting their salaries.
No,
they're not complaining about not getting salaries.
There used to be a time when they were complaining about salaries.
Well, but that's then. We know the month that we're giving. The management gave them letters. That was the month of March.
Yeah, let me check with them about this point you made.
Okay.
Raphael's back with me this time on the phone line. Raphael, so have you spoken about these concerns with management at all? I think we lost him there. You're making a point.
Yeah, in March, you remember there was a letter that circulated. The management gave them a notice that their salaries would be delayed. And management was very fair with them that, look, we're having challenges. And that's a result of the CP4 letter in March. So in March, nobody got paid. So it's no news. So what we are trying to say, and I mean, myself and Brandon saying the same thing, we are saying that there exists a problem. Government, Ministry of Finance needs to get their act together and make sure that some of these monies are paid when needed. Yes, they might have genuine complaint about changing of equipment, parts to do work and all that. If you're a company like GRIDCO and you feel that you are owed all the billions they talk of and you're not getting that money and you are now having to just live on salary alone and everything you need to do a requisition, you need to go to Ministry of Finance, you think that as a company, proper corporate governance dictate that you have your own revenue, your own budget to do your own accounts and spend as you want. They're not able to do that. So there's some level of frustration. They can't innovate. They can't do other projects that the company wants to do. We agree with them. But they shouldn't. You see, the problem I have is that everybody wakes up and starts threatening that there will be Dumsor. Meanwhile, nobody wants to go in Dumsor. So why are you threatening that?
Because they see the reality on the ground and they feel it's going to, if it's not fixed, it could lead there.
But you cannot be more Catholic than the Pope. The government gets the bashing if the light goes off tomorrow.
Yeah, but we sat in this country where governments slept on the job until it got so bad, the crisis hit us for 3 years.
But you think government was not worried about it?
I mean, but
the government of the day was very.
Whatever it is, we got to that point.
Well, that's fine. But the approach, you could question the approach, but you cannot go to the fact that they were not worried. The NDC government at that time was very worried about what was going on, and a lot of things they did to resolve it. You can question it, but everybody at the helm of the affairs is worried when the nation goes into darkness because a lot suffers.
Why is it that, some of the minority guys in Parliament have confirmed this, and the workers have confirmed that they're not investing as much in GRIDCO's replacement of equipment, etc., etc. Why is that? Because that is a real challenge.
We're not investing in anything.
That is not only with GRIDCO. I mean,
look at our roads.
We're not investing everywhere.
We're not investing. Look at our roads.
It's as if one side works and the other.
But it appears that GRIDCO seem to have a more peculiar, more acute problem.
Why is ECG's problem? Why are we giving ECG out for a concession? They are even worse.
Don't you think our roads are more acute than GRIDCO? So have you seen the potholes on the roads these days?
No, but we're talking about roads. I mean, we know roads.
Well, that's fine, but
we're talking about power here. I mean, the thing that the economy runs on, fundamentally, are power.
We understand that, but the point you are trying to make is that you are trying to make it look like a government is particularly starving.
But so you're saying that, it's not your argument, is it? That because we are not, GRIDCO is not getting the money to replace equipment and improve it, and it happens elsewhere, then it's okay.
No, my problem is that the government is broke. The government is broke. Look, the government.
But that's not true, is it?
No, it is true.
Government is broke. Ben makes the point earlier. We pay our due to all these agencies.
But do we pay enough? That's the question.
No, we do pay enough. As for that argument, I think we pay enough.
Me and Ben now diverge on that point. I don't think
they have to just streamline the process. Okay, we have agreed that X amount goes to GRIDCO. So if I have paid my bill 100 cedis, and 2% is for GRIDCO.
Let it go to GRIDCO.
Let it go to GRIDCO. You don't have any control over that. I think that is where we have been sleeping, and sometimes ECG misbehave, and we just watch them do that. You are collecting revenue that doesn't belong to you. You don't keep it. So they tend to spend more than they should hold, and then everybody is held to ransom. And that shouldn't be encouraged. And that is what has brought us where we are today, because there was no urgency for ECG to act, because they get all the money that belongs to the generators come to them, the money that belongs to transmission comes to them, and then their own money. And they spend out of that, and whatever is left, they share. Instead of paying what has been agreed in the tariff for the generators, for transmission companies, they don't do that. You know, and I think that's where we need to really streamline.
But that's where the waterfall,
and ensure
the waterfall approach.
But it hasn't.
But the
worked.
waterfall, how long have we been talking about waterfall?
Yeah.
2014.
It hasn't really worked.
To now, 5 years on, we are still talking waterfall mechanism. I mean,
Right, but the point is, by what you're saying, the waterfall
really
mechanism will address this problem.
No, but it hasn't worked.
hasn't
I mean,
worked.
It has been,
No,
it
hasn't been
implemented. But that's the
It hasn't
thing.
been implemented.
Why? But there must be a reason.
No, the reason it wasn't
the
implemented
previous government
was
was
that,
not didn't implement it.
the
3
reason
years
it-
into
no,
this government, they have implemented as well.
PDS didn't want it implemented because PDS thought.
But this
they're
is not
gonna
PDS matter. Waterfall was introduced long before we
Yes,
talked about
but
PDS.
yes, but the thing is that when just as it was about to be implemented, bear in mind PDS has been going on at the background for some time. So was it that you implement it and PDS comes on, or let PDS come and agree? And they came and said, look, since we are going to put up a guarantee, we don't need to do the waterfall, because we guarantee that we will pay back whatever power that we take, because we're not going to take everything. And the waterfall assumed that everything was taken. But that is not the case. So in this case, going forward, I think if without PDS or whoever come to take the ECG on a concession again, I think government should implement the waterfall, because waterfall will address some of these problems that we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean,
whereby everybody gets paid from the bucket, managed by PULC, and then the rest goes to whoever.
You brought PULC, and I'm going to touch on that because the GRIDCO has its own inefficiencies that people say that, you know, it's part of the problem as well. They themselves has to look internal first. Raphael is back on the line. Raphael, can you hear me, sir?
Hear you.
Great. So I was asking you earlier whether you had any interactions with management on these concerns, and what have they told you?
No. We met with our management team and the board, but it's normal. It's part of our normal meetings. I mean, they seek to understand the instructions we have issued, and that is all.
Okay, so what did management tell you about the financial situation that you complained about? Did they say they have assurances from government that it's going to be fixed, or they said what? What exactly did they tell you about the situation you complained about?
In fact, they told us they've been talking, and they have always been talking. In fact, if we pull out our minutes of meetings that we had with them, it has always been featuring. And for us, we need action more than words now. But Mr. Evans, let me just, your panelists in the studio, not what the other colleague. In fact, he made some statement there which I think that is very unfortunate. If you are saying that Newmont has been paying, other customers have been paying, the chunk of power we will, 80% is consumed by ECG. So it is saying that other customers are paying, so we should use that to pay only hotel bills. We should use it to service our loans. We should use it to buy spares. We should use it to do other things. Is that what he's saying? When 80% of your power is being consumed by ECG and they are not paying you regular, is that what he's saying? It's unfortunate. I think that we have to come to terms with the situation and deal with it, as Ben Boache is saying. If you collect our money, which tariffs have been set for, you have your tariff, we have our tariff. Collect and give it to us. I mean, that is simple. And I think we have to rework the system so that we do that. But it's unfortunate that he made that statement.
The problem you refer to, the financial situation, you're referring solely to legacy debt, correct?
Well, we itemize the legacy debt, and the debt that has been accrued after the exit or during the exiting of PDS. Yes, that is what we've itemized. In fact, we stated categorically that the legacy debt covers about 607 million, while the debt that has been accrued after the exit of PDS is 94 million. If that money has been paid to us, I don't think the situation will have been the way it is now.
Okay, so you're saying that, I mean, PDS went out to the scene, what, was it last month? Was it October? October. So you're saying that in the last 4 weeks, let's say 5-6 weeks, they've accumulated 90 million.
Yes, 94 million. In fact, you know, as we speak now, October bill will mature at the end of this month. So the 94 we put out there is as of September.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, we have a 30-day period of maturity of the debt.
Yeah.
So if October bill will mature at the end of this month.
And you say that ECG hasn't paid anything since they took over?
Well, what we are saying is that what they have been paying doesn't commensurate the billing we are giving them.
Okay,
if you bill
they are
about 48
something.
or 50 million,
okay,
and they give you about 6 or 7 million a week, are you being paid as is expected? That is what we are saying. And in some cases, the check you go, it bounces, as I indicated.
And very finally on this, when you speak to management, did they say that back to the conversation about what management has told you about the checks that have been bounced, etc., has that been rectified?
Come in again, I can't hear you.
Has that been rectified? The checks that have been bounced, has that been rectified, do you know?
Well, we are yet to find out.
Okay. You laid out a series of actions that you plan to take, including withdrawal of emergency services. Eventually, you were saying that you withdraw services completely. Since you still haven't heard anything, I assume that today you are withdrawing your emergency services, correct?
Yes, Ivan, it's in vogue.
It's in vogue, okay. And you're continuing with this roadmap until the 4th of December?
Yes, we are embarking on it. Okay. Maybe if tomorrow something drastic change, then we'll also review the situation and act accordingly.
Okay. So that's the point he's making there, that the ECG has only been paying a fraction of what they actually owe. So what you're referring to, it really doesn't even begin to address the problem.
You see, the issue I came out of the Newmont is the statement that you said that they are not even able to travel.
Yes, which is what
they are saying. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that it's not possible that you cannot travel because you are receiving 20%. Like he said, 80% goes to ECG.
He just explained that if they take the 20% from everybody else, there are other things that are absolutely...
But that money is not coins.
That's not money, it's not coins. In 4 weeks, they are owed 94 million. How much do you think that money is? In 4 weeks.
I mean, there are problems to address.
Yes, I mean, in 4 weeks, you're owed 94 million. But let's not reduce it to... in 4 weeks...
But that's why I think that, this conversation we're having is probably too early, just after the cancellation of the PDS deal. And whilst appreciating that there are problems to fix, and that's why we wanted PDS to come in, really, to fix the problem so that this cycle of non-payment would actually be a thing of the past. But if you have just a month into the cancellation, and you do know how cumbersome some of these interfaces are, if you know what is happening in the background, trying to move accounts. Even in our office, we sent a check to PDS, and they returned the check that we should write it in ECG's name. And it's happening to many other people. When PDS was taking over, also it's the same. People wrote check in the name of ECG, and they told them to rewrite the check in the name of PDS. So these kind of processes also derail the smooth payment of things. So they could have waited a little more, engaged the management to do the needful and follow up some of these, especially when it's been coming and one check has bounced. I mean, check bouncing is not a new phenomenon in this town. So we really need to give ourselves time and follow through the process, first of all, to ensure that a new arrangement will be institutionalized, to ensure that we don't return to those days of inefficiencies and all of that in ECG, but we can bring in the investment that is required to be able to retool the distribution sector and also ensure that we can streamline some of these payments into the long term. I think that's what is more.
I'm going to take a quick break. When I return, I'll get my guests to talk a bit about PDS, by the way, because it was supposed to be the solution to the problem. The workers confirmed when PDS was there, they were happier with the payment that they were getting from PDS than they're getting from ECG. And so the workers agitate. But if they are happy with the PDS...
Isn't that a bit ironic? That now PDS is being given
praise? Yeah. In fact, not only the GRIDCO workers, even the ECG Workers Union.
It's an indictment on everybody who's been involved in the power sector.
Who was absolutely excited about it. So, I mean, can we take a break now? Okay, I mean, so we can continue on this because that is a fascinating story by itself, is it not? I mean, in fact, I listened to Pooh in the heat of the confusion whether to cancel or not to cancel. And they were also very excited with PDS. PDS was paying them on time, they're paying the bonuses. Same pool of revenue. PDS pays workers on time, pays bonuses, pays GRIDCO. Workers are all happy across board. ECG comes in, complaints start again. What is the problem?
Well, ECG hasn't come in. Like Ben said earlier, let's give time for the transition to happen. It's cumbersome. Even when you try to locate a staff in ECG, nobody knows where the staff is working
ECG
now.
has a reputation.
No. It is trying
the workers mind is that before ECG came, they knew the situation. They've now had the opportunity to compare somebody else's record. Immediately ECG comes back, the previous situation is recurred.
Look, we were part of the group that nobody wanted to go to Newco. Everybody was so happy with
it took
ECG.
us ages to
it took us ages to be able to convince the staff
to agree
who are happy with the Newco. Are happy now.
Yes.
You remember the agitation, the strikes.
They didn't want PDS.
They were striking.
They said, in fact,
no, they didn't want a Newco. They didn't want a new company.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
At best, floated. They wanted to float it on the stock exchange. So, let's buy shares.
But okay, so we knew best. We, myself, Ben, and other Mr. Janto and other people coming, Imani and all that. We, Kofi Bento, we managed to convince them to go. And when they went, they were happy. So they should at least give us some credit that we know that some of these things will work for you. So when they are now coming back, they should give this system time to work for them. It is the same set. Let me tell you what, the amazing thing that happened, and I have this on good authority. When they moved to PDS consolidated all their accounts at Cowbank. Do you know what that did? It now increased their revenue. For nobody knows how and why. ECG had all these dotted accounts, so they were not able to now consolidate their revenues. Now, when they went back, when ECG was doing something like 120 million a week, now they are doing in the apps of 200 million a week. So the increment of revenue has also bolstered that whole good work that we are all talking about, that, oh, they went to PDS and did a good job. Now they are all back, same people, nobody been sacked, under the clothing of ECG. We are hoping that they will continue in that same vein. The teething problem of reconciliation and moving things back is expected. Same way we had that problem in February, March, April, the same way we are going to have this in September, October, November, which is what we're having now. When all this thing goes on, and the help of Ministry of Finance working a bit faster to make sure this reconciliation thing is done, we'll go back to a much better system. Why not? If going forward, government feels that they need to take it back to a concessionaire, we'll learn from which we hope will happen.
They should.
We hope happens. Then we would have learned from the past and go to the new. But I don't think that the clothing is stigmatization. People are just stigmatized with the ECG thing, that, oh, ECG again. Now somebody like goes and say, we're back to ECG, my light is gone off.
Yeah, but meanwhile, the PDS, the light went off anyway. But Ben, the bigger question is, this is just one part of the problem. But the entire energy sector is just saddled with billions and billions of dollars of debt. That is not sustainable. Absolutely. Somehow, it could collapse this economy. We've done many interventions, ESLA, and you go into it, and there's always a complaint that when we do the interventions, money's coming, we don't even use it for the purposes that, Can this even be solved? When do we get to a point where this thing all collapses on us?
No, I think we've gotten to the point where we ask ourselves, can it be solved? And to that point where we have to be involved to fix it, including you. And everybody.
Why has the previous interventions failed? It hasn't worked.
We don't pay enough.
We have to, absolutely not. We pay more than enough.
We don't pay enough.
It's just that it's poorly managed. There is a lot of waste that we are built with. As citizens, we have to be able to clean that waste. And if you check the power sector challenges, you add gas, capacity charges, excess capacity charges, you are in the region of $100 million every month on the books of government. That is almost equivalent to one Eastern Corridor road every month. And people are crying across the country for roads. We cannot continue to pay that kind of money without paying for it, without the power sector actually generating the revenue that will be able to pay for it. So it's important that the roadmap that had been derailed, with the concession arrangement, we come back on track and ensure that we can invite private sector into the business and ensure that we can quickly fix the distribution sector. Because if we don't fix it, generators are not being paid, and they are not also paying for the gas. Government is the one that has guaranteed all those gas and power plants. They have to pay for them. The bad thing is that if power is not generated, the generator gets paid. The private company gets paid by government, because government has guaranteed it. You and I sleep in darkness, and still our taxes are going to be used to pay those generators. The gas companies will also get paid, even though gas hasn't been used to generate electricity. So it is such a wasteful enterprise that we need to fix almost immediately. And that's why I was saying that all of us have to come together to ensure that we fix this once and for all, to save money for development. Other than that, all the money is going waste as we speak.
Well, I mean, it's a headache, really. I mean, could you put your final thoughts on this?
Well, I think that the tariff needs to be looked at seriously, because I believe that even if we go back into
all you're saying is to increase the tariff.
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. We need to look at how to make it more efficient. Because even if we go back to another concessionaire, I believe that one of the major problems with the PDS not working was the tariff methodology that wasn't right. Okay, so if we don't look at it well,
you just told us that PDS took over and tariff revenue increased over almost 100%.
Yeah.
It tells you that there is a fundamental problem we are not looking at. We're always looking at the customer to pay more. And I'm saying that let us fix the problem.
Want us to pay for the inefficiency.
Cut the waste, the inefficiency, and rake the money.
right, that's one area of it. Then you have the bigger elephant in the room, which is government, who doesn't pay its bills. Okay, so government should also now find money to pay its bills.
So the solution is not tariffs.
It's not just tariffs, but what I'm saying is that there is a bigger picture
The
that
tariff needs to even come down. It's too high.
Well, that's a different story for another day. But then those are things that we need to look at. But that is the main vein. We need to look at that and basically be able to move forward.
Good job, I'm grateful that you joined me. Energy analyst, Ben Boachi, Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy
How
Policy.
can you industrialize with $80 cents
highest, one of the highest in the South region, right? National Chairman of GRIDCO Senior Staff has also joined us on the phone. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Hopefully, this is solved. It's a problem, really. I mean, back in the day, there was a bigger argument before the 2016 election, whether it was a technical problem or a financial problem. If you are in government, your argument is this is a technical problem. And then the opposition will say this is a financial problem. When the government this current government's argument is that, it's a technical problem. We are fixing it. It's not financial. But we all know it's financial, really. I mean, sometimes it's technical as well, but mainly it's financial. And until you fix that, the cycle will continue. Enjoy the rest of the evening.